Image yourself no longer lonely. An unhappy woman came to consult me a few months ago. She was in her mid-50s, I judged, pleasant-looking but with an aura of dejection about her. "Dr. Peale," she said. "I'm in prison, and I can't get out." "What sort of prison?" I asked her. "The prison of loneliness," she said. "The prison of isolation from life. And I'm not the only one, there are thousands upon thousands of us. Mostly elderly people, but some just middle aged and widowed, like me. Solitary human beings living in the loneliest solitude of all. The solitude of a big city." She looked down at the handkerchief she was twisting in her fingers. Finally she went on, "The days crawl by, one just like another. And do you know what the worst time of all is? It's 6 p.m. That is when Ralph used to come home from the office, and we would have an hour or so together before I'd get dinner on the table. I used to wait for the sound of his key in the lock of our apartment. Now 6 o'clock comes, and there is no key in the lock, no familiar face, no one to prepare a meal for. I turn on the 6 o'clock news and look at it, but I don't really hear it, because I'm so lonely I just want to die." I did feel sorry for her. I said, "Don't you have some friends or relatives who can partially fill the gap left by your husband's death?" She shook her head. "No relatives here in the city," she said. "My 2 daughters are married and live elsewhere. I have a few acquaintances, but they are all busy with their own lives. They don't have time for me, and I don't blame them." "Why do you say that?" I asked her. "Well," she said with a wan smile, "I'm not the most scintillating company in the world. I never finished college, I just met Ralph and married him. I don't have much to contribute, I guess. I don't have any skills to get a job with. I'm just a homebody, really. Nobody cares much about homebodies these days." "You say you're a prisoner," I said to her. "And you want me to help you organize a jailbreak. Well, to begin with, do you know who holds the key to your cell? Do you know who your jailer really is?" "No," she said, looking puzzled, "not really." "I think you do know," I told her. "The jailer is you. You're the only person who has the key to your cell. You're the only one who can open the door that leads to freedom. You'll never do it so long as you hold in your mind this image of yourself as a helpless victim of circumstance, a woman who lacks friends because she thinks she has so little to contribute, a person hopelessly trapped in a dungeon of loneliness. If you continue to image yourself that way, that is what you will continue to be. So if we are really going to organize a jailbreak, we will have to begin with you and some of these attitudes that are walling you in." "Isn't it too late," she said, "to start changing attitudes at my age?" "That is just the sort of attitude we need to change," I told her. "Of course it's not too late. We can start right now. We are going to do some creative imaging of a fascinating existence for you. You said you see yourself as a prisoner. Lonely, almost friendless, living in a drab procession of monotonous days where nothing ever happens. Now I challenge you, this very moment, to throw that tired, old, downbeat, negative image of yourself right out of your mind. In its place, visualize a woman. You. With a smile on her face and a song in her heart, inviting a friend over for lunch or a movie or a trip to a museum. And being invited back, taking bridge lessons, perhaps, until she becomes a good player, offering her time and energy as a volunteer at some hospital, buying a new dress or a new coat, going to church on Sunday and meeting new people, taking up a new hobby or two, photography, perhaps, bird watching, anything. But always image a new life, a vital, interesting life. I was watching her face as I talked, and I could see hope and doubt simultaneously in her eyes. Image the new you. Push those doubts out of your mind, and do it now, I told her. Pin up this image of the new you that I'm giving you in their place. The doubts will try to come back, and so will a lot of other old, tired attitudes and habits. You just have to practice displacing everything that contributes to a poor self-image and replacing those things with realizable goals. What I'm portraying is not beyond your reach. It is a personality change that you can have if you make up your mind to have it, if you desire it with all your heart, if you pray for help in obtaining it. Start every day with a prayer. Prayerize, visualize, actualize. That is the formula for successful imaging. If you carry out the first 2 steps with all the intensity you can muster, I promise you that the 3rd step will take care of itself. Twice since then, I've had occasional reports from this woman. She hasn't turned into a complete extrovert overnight, but she is really trying and she is getting somewhere with her new self-image. She is busier and she is happier. And she's stopped thinking of herself as a prisoner. She said that whenever she feels the old insidious chill of loneliness beginning to creep back into her life, she picks up the phone and calls someone who may be lonelier than she is. So I have no doubt that she will conquer her loneliness, because she has discovered the best solution of all, thinking about other people instead of herself. I've heard it said that loneliness is the great modern plague, that it exists in epidemic proportions. Well, let's take a closer look at this affliction that claims so many victims, and try to list some countermeasures. First, I think it helps to realize that being alone doesn't necessarily make you lonely. I know quite a few people who actually enjoy solitude because they've mastered the art of living pleasantly with themselves. Some lucky people seem to be born with this happy faculty. One night, when our daughter Margaret was about 4 years old, I heard her laughing and talking to herself long after she should have been asleep. I went into her room and asked her what was going on. "Oh," she said, "I'm just laughing because I have such a good time with me." And I remember thinking, what a wonderful way to be. You have to spend every minute of your life in your own company. If you don't enjoy it, you're going to be miserable. If you do enjoy it, solitude will never bother you. If the time you spend alone is to be spent pleasantly, you have to know yourself and you have to like yourself. Knowing yourself means understanding what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what gives you pleasure, and what bores you. Take myself, for example. I'm a worker. I like to work, I am accustomed to work, I feel happiest when I'm working. Holidays tend to make me restless because I have the uncomfortable feeling that I'm wasting my time. I like the satisfaction that comes from getting things done, so when I have to be alone, I'm able to live pleasantly with myself by filling my waking hours with the work I love to do. Like writing this book, for example. Like yourself. Then there is the question of liking yourself. Most of us think of ourselves quite favorably most of the time. But there are a surprising number of people whose self-esteem is too low. People who have done things they are ashamed of, or suffer from an inferiority complex, or demand too much of themselves and then blame themselves when they fall short. How can other people be attracted to them if they don't like themselves? The plain truth is, many lonely people are lonely because they turn other people off. They are irritable, or rude, or complaining, or critical, or self-centered, or downbeat, or opinionated, or just plain dull. Sometimes they have little mannerisms that drive you up a wall. Many years ago, I knew a woman, a good-hearted person, really, who seemed to walk through life in slow motion. She moved deliberately, she talked deliberately, she thought deliberately. Since she was a member of a committee on which I also served, I had to have lunch with her occasionally. When I did, I almost had to grit my teeth to keep from showing impatience as she slowly pushed each morsel of food at least 6 times around her plate, slowly raised it to her mouth, slowly chewed and chewed. I was able to endure it, due to infrequent meetings, and I always try to take people as they come. But I learned that others fled her in droves. So if you are lonely, you must face the possibility that something in your own personality is causing that loneliness. And if it is, you have to isolate it and actively do something about it. Try to see yourself as others may see you. What sort of expression do you habitually wear? Does a smile come easily, or do you feel more at ease with a frown? How is your posture? Do you stand straight and tall, or do you slump dejectedly? Do you project an aura of cheerfulness and confidence, or would you make a perceptive observer say, "Here comes bad news"? How about your dress and your grooming? Are you an attractive-looking person, someone you yourself would like to meet? What about your conversation? Are most of your opinions enthusiastic and optimistic? Or are they the reverse? Do the things you find fault with outnumber the things you praise? How many of your sentences begin with a capital I? Do you truly pay attention to what the other person is saying, or are you too busy thinking about what you will say next? Have you learned the basic rule of successful small talk, which is to inquire about other people's interests, or do you rattle incessantly about your own? Review your attitude about people in general. Ask yourself honestly, do you really like to be around people? Do you care about them and show them that you care? When you have an outflowing attitude of genuine caring, it creates a state of harmony between you and other people that is irresistible. People feel it instantly, and they always respond. Another cure for loneliness lies in that old exhortation, don't just sit there, do something. One of the most common causes of loneliness is inertia and the apathy that comes from not having enough to do. I remember one day coming out of a Rotary luncheon and seeing a forlorn woman sitting in the lobby of the hotel. She was the widow of a Rotarian who had died some weeks before. When I asked her why she was there, she said that it made her feel less lonely to sit outside the Rotary meeting that had meant so much to her husband. "If you'll come with me," I told her, "I'll give you a better solution." I took her to my church, where some cheerful women volunteers were stuffing envelopes and having a lot of fun together. "Here is a new helper," I said to them. "Take her in. Make friends with her. Above all, keep her busy." And they did. She told me afterward that having something useful to do, and congenial people to do it with, had rescued her from despair. But remember this, if you are lonely, you can't just wait for someone to come along and rescue you. You have to be willing to make a move yourself. Form a picture of the interesting life you want to live and of one in which you have many friends and exciting interests. Hold that image and move constantly toward it. The mental picture will reproduce itself as fact. The truth is, we all need supportive relationships. I once heard a lecture in which the speaker talked about the great redwood trees of California, those magnificent giants of the forest towering as much as 300 feet in the air. "You'd think such tall trees would require very deep roots," the speaker said. Actually, redwoods have a very shallow root system, designed to capture all the surface moisture possible. These roots spread out in all directions, and as a result, all the roots of all the trees in a redwood grove are intertwined. They are locked together so that when the wind blows or a storm strikes, all the trees support and sustain one another. That is why you almost never see a redwood standing alone. They need one another to survive. Most people do, too. Finally, the best remedy for loneliness is available to each of us, all the time. Not long ago, I read about a power failure in a Salt Lake City hotel that left an elevator stuck between floors in total darkness. A frightening situation. Rescue workers, hearing a woman's voice inside, called out, "Are you alone in there?" "I'm by myself," came the calm reply, "but I'm not alone." People soon caught on that she meant God was with her, protecting her, as indeed He was. You don't have to be trapped in an elevator to practice the presence of God. You can talk to Him any place, anytime, about anything, and He will listen and respond. Jesus said, "I am with you always, even unto the end of the world," Matthew 28 verse 20. Hold fast to that assurance, and the dark shadows of loneliness will fade away.